Hey race fans, Steve Letarte here at Spire Motorsports to help point out some of the changes you may or may not see when the Cup cars hit the dirt for the first time in over 50 years. This number 7, driven by Corey LaJoie, the first thing, what does it look like? It looks like a Cup car. I know that sounds silly, but I think that's the thing to point out. This is not an exhibition race. These aren't dirt late models. They're not dirt modifieds. They are the same Cup cars you see week in and week out at all of the racetracks. This specific car will actually run later in the year at an asphalt track, so you can run a car everywhere. So if they look the same, what is different? Well, let's start at the front of the car. The first thing you're gonna see is the height. These cars are normally down on the ground, sealed to the asphalt. Why? Because that splitter is so important. This week, not only are the cars higher, but check this out. What are we missing? Missing a splitter, optional. You can run it, you can't run it. How about this? We've seen it hit the grass. What's it do in the grass? It turns into a shovel. I'm not a dirt racer, but I don't think you want a shovel in the front of your car. I don't think we're gonna see a lot of splitters. One reason for this big, high nose is not just the irregularities on the racetrack, but it's the tire. Goodyear Racing normally brings these smooth, treaded, radial tires. They're very stiff. They hold the height of the car very well. This week at Bristol, grooved, treaded, bias ply tires. That's right, we're going back to the 80s. It's the bias plies. The tires are gonna move around. They're gonna squish down, try to gain that grip for the driver. The car is gonna move around a whole lot more. Well, anyone that's been to a dirt race knows, guess what? It's dirty, dust in the air. Where does that dust go? Anywhere air can go, so you gotta protect your race car. The number one thing, protect the engine. The air going in the engine, protect it with one of these screens. The other area, how about the air going in the radiator? No pit stops at Bristol, stage breaks. So all the teams have all these different ways to protect the opening. You're gonna see some mechanics cleaning the mud off, try to keep the air in the radiator, the engine cool for 250 laps. Some of those small details that are added in, it's hard to see, but there's a little screen over these NACA ducts. You can't have mud, dust, and dirt getting inside the car. And then, hard to see, but underneath the sheet metal, down the whole right side, added bracing. NASCAR has seen this before. We've seen it at Eldora. These sides, they are gonna hit the wall, folks. And when they hit the wall, added bracing to keep these cars running. It's important to run fast. More importantly, though, to run 250 laps and finish. What happens when the bracing finally dents in? The spoiler come in contact. Normally, NASCAR runs this wide spoiler. It goes all the way to the edges of the quarter panel. But we know there's gonna be contact, so NASCAR thinking ahead, so you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna narrow it up, try to keep these spoilers on the car, but because it's narrower, it's taller. Look at the difference. The short spoiler in the front's what we see every week. That big tall spoiler in the back, that's what they're gonna run at Bristol. And I'm gonna tell you what, these drivers, they're gonna want that added grip when it comes to the dirt-covered half mile. Well, that's a good overview of the whole car and what you may or may not see watching at home or in the grandstands. But let's take a second and look at all the tweaks these teams are gonna make, all the small details that are gonna make a difference during the race. So one of the big questions, and probably the biggest thing of curiosity from the race fans, how well can the drivers see? What's the visibility gonna be? Well, one change not made is the windshield. The windshield's still in. The only way to clean the outside, old school tear-offs. Just like we see at every other asphalt track, only a pit crew guy can help the driver with that. Now, if the driver needs a little help on the inside, they are gonna give the drivers a little, little mop, little dust job, try to get the inside cleaned up. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully they'll have some yellows if that's the case. The other option teams have, and we'll see, you could call it a wicker. I call it a hope guard, because you hope the mud hits this. You hope it doesn't hit the windshield. You may see some teams with a little piece of Lexan on the hood trying to protect the visibility for the driver if that dirt track gets a little muddy. Well, there you have it. Some big changes you may see, a lot of details you may not, but in the end, it's still a Cup car, and it's still Bristol, just this time covered in dirt.